Everybody, and welcome to week 11 of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate podcast. I am Lucas Dorton. I am joined by Nicholas Doetkott. Nick, how are we doing today?
Not too bad.
It's good, man. If you all are wondering, obviously the XFL did start today. We're not really going to go too much into detail, but we are going to give who our teams are going to be in this one. So, Nick, I know it was kind of like the LeBron James, what team is he going to go to? Everybody is wondering, what team is Nicholas Doetkott going to be picking?
Tampa Bay Vipers.
You taking your talents to Tampa Bay, huh?
Yes. Where's Dorton putting his loyalties?
I'm bringing my loyalties to the DC Defenders, baby.
Woo! Right, Defender up. I'm okay with that, though. My pick was between the Defenders and the Vipers. I looked at the 8 teams. I literally just looked at what their name is. And I'm like, you know what? Vipers seem the coolest. I'll go with the Vipers. But I was a little swayed because the DC Defenders got 2 former Gophers in Jalen Myrick and Jonathan Celestine. And they were the first game. So I was just watching the DC Defenders. But I don't know. I think my loyalty is with the Vipers.
Well, we'll have to see at the end of the season how my Defenders and your Vipers do.
Viper up.
Yeah. I don't know.
The DC Dortons right there? Is that what that is?
The DC Dortons, yeah. Oh, man. Okay, well, I suppose we can get to the actual stuff that we have to talk about today.
Hey, it's all right. XFL's to me, they're semi-pro. We're semi-pro too. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. That's what we are, Dorton.
That's right. Well, we'll get to the big leagues one day. All righty. So we're going to get into it here. First, we're going to start off with some NFL news, obviously. We're going to start with the Super Bowl because, well, we have not been here since the Super Bowl was played. So the Kansas City Chiefs coming back and beating the San Francisco 49ers. Patrick Mahomes was the Super Bowl MVP. Nick, I am irate. I got absolutely screwed.
You did.
I picked Damien Williams to be the MVP. You can go back to our Super Bowl special podcast and listen to it. I picked Damien Williams to be our MVP. Well, what does Damien Williams do in that game? 2 touchdowns, over 100 rushing yards, and 30-some receiving yards. He got screwed.
Oh, you got hosed. Well, he did, and you got hosed. Just hosed. Honestly, I'm Mahomes played well down the stretch, but that was honestly the worst game I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes play. That doesn't mean he played horrible. It just means the dude's hardly ever had a bad game. That was the worst one I've seen him play. And Damien Williams had, I think, 100-some. I don't know the exact total, but it was over 100 rush yards and 2 touchdowns, including the one that essentially iced it at the end. I mean, he totally should have got it. And I just like to say credit to you. You pretty much said he was the he was going to be the X factor. You picked him to get MVP, which technically is wrong, but it should have been right. And hey, I actually picked a football pick right too. We both picked the Chiefs at 31 points. We got the points for the Chiefs right. So technically, you beat me. You said no. Did you say 31 Chiefs or 30?
I think I said 30. I think I said 32-26 Chiefs.
That's right. You said 32-26. I said 31-27. So I got the Chiefs score right. You were up by 1. Total points. We missed it by the same margin, but we both got Chiefs. So, but anyways, back to Damien Williams. He got hosed. I mean, like I said, he had over 100 yards rushing. He had 2 touchdowns. So he's got the yards, he's got the touchdowns, and he pretty much sealed it. I mean, what else do you got to do?
I don't know. Throw a touchdown, man.
Exactly. It just goes to show that the quarterback almost always gets it, whether he should or not. Just like against the Falcons. Now, granted, Brady balled out and had I think 400 some yards, but James White had. I gotta turn these notifications off, man.
Update, folks. What do we got?
But James White had 3 touchdowns that game and 100 and I think it was 13 or 14 receptions for over 100 yards, 140 total yards and 3 touchdowns, and then Tom Brady gets the MVP. It was kind of the same thing. It's they just give it to the quarterback.
Right. Yeah, I mean, kind of looking at this now, I don't think that since with Mahomes winning it when he definitely should not have won it, I think it's going to be extremely tough to never not give it to a quarterback in the future now. Because if you can play like that and win the Super Bowl, now granted, he had some big throws, had some big plays in that game.
Oh, yeah.
But overall, stats-wise, should have given it to him. But, well, now we'll talk about the actual game part of it as I'm over that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess, I don't know. What are your takeaways from it?
Yeah, well, not only, on the Damian Williams side of thing, obviously he was my X factor for the 49ers. Remember, Emmanuel Sanders was mine.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget, folks, if Garoppolo is able to put that pass, he's got the touchdown there. So I was feeling really good with my predictions. I was feeling really good with my predictions.
Yeah. Granted, being that was incomplete, Sanders was pretty much a no-show. But
right.
I want to touch on that just because now, was that pass really easy? No. But Garoppolo could have had it. I mean, that's a very I'll take Cousins, for example, because the Vikings quarterback. Cousins has not been that great in prime time, and he's a little iffy here and there. And I think him and Garoppolo are very similar, but I've seen Cousins make that throw many times this year. I'm not saying he would have, but I've seen him make that throw many times this year. And Garoppolo wasn't even close. It's not only that he didn't make that throw, he wasn't even close. And I think there's a lot of other quarterbacks that would have made that throw. And I mean, I'm not trying to bash on Garoppolo here, but it just goes to show we were both kind of, critical of Garoppolo and didn't really think he was that great. And if he makes that throw, the Niners probably win that game. And I think that's pretty much the reason we weren't picking the Niners, because of Garoppolo.
Right. And just kind of going off of that too, I guess the whole game in general, I thought for the first, 3 quarters, Garoppolo, I thought he played really well. He had one pretty bad pick where he got hit and threw the pick. I think for 3 quarters, he was outplaying Mahomes. But the 4th quarter, Mahomes just absolutely turned it on and showed, that's why I'm the MVP last season. I mean,
I wouldn't necessarily say he outplayed him or played really well, but he was good enough. I mean, he was doing good enough to give them they were up by 10 with 10 minutes left because Garoppolo was doing good enough. And, he had 1 or 2 touchdowns. That, like you mentioned, that interception is pretty bad. But for the most part, he just played average. It just at the time was all right because KC hadn't turned it on. But now, credit to KC because they came back when they needed to. And at the end of the day, although Mahomes didn't play that great, he got the job done and scored 21 points in the last 10 minutes. But if Garoppolo and the Niners could have been better offensively and scored more, they could have potentially iced that game where it didn't matter how good KC played in the 4th quarter. Because KC's defense or San Fran's offense, whether one was playing bad or not, KC's defense kept it just close enough to give them hope. San Fran could have ripped it away from them, but they just couldn't build that huge lead. And then KC just said, all right, time to go. And they won. So, I mean, I'd say I don't think San Fran lost that as bad as people think. I think it was more so KC won it towards the end. But that being said, Garoppolo and that offense could have iced that game, and they failed to do so.
Right. No, and that's another thing I was wondering too, and I want to get your take on it, obviously. As far as the running game goes, we knew that the 49ers had a very lethal running game and obviously showed that NFC Championship game. And then,
as well as against the Vikings.
And against the Vikings as well, too. And then they get to the Super Bowl, and it was almost not even a factor. Not that it didn't work. They just really didn't run the ball as much. I don't understand why you change a game plan of something that's been working all this time, who we all know the Chiefs' defensive front is okay, but it's not the best. They probably would have been pretty decent, pretty much changing all of that to give more opportunities for Garoppolo. What did you think about that?
I guess, you're talking the game. It's the whole game. But, I just want to focus necessarily on that 4th quarter because a lot of people are blaming Shanahan for it. And now, I was critical. I was making jokes the whole Super Bowl about Shanahan. Oh, Niners. The last thing the Niners want is go up 28-3 because Shanahan will blow it. Blah blah blah. But that being said, I don't think Shanahan blew that as much as people are saying he did. Yes, they should have ran the ball more, but they weren't running the ball as effectively. They were running it okay, but it wasn't anywhere near what they were the first 2 games. And KC's defense, you got to give them a little credit. They've been pretty good since week 13 or 14. They for the most part, at least in Derrick Henry standards, they shut him down last week. And they were they were stopping Damian Williams enough, or sorry, not Damian Williams. They were stopping Raheem Mostert enough, and granted, Debo had some good runs on him, but they were stopping the run game enough to keep it within reach. And in the fourth quarter, a lot of people were critical of Shanahan because he said he should have ran more. Well, I get it, but see, there was, I want to say, about 7 minutes left, and KC was down, what was it, 10? But if you're the Niners, you know Kansas City is going, you know what they can do. You know they can score like that. So Shanahan's thinking, well, we can't just run this clock out, run, and run this clock out. It's not like there's 3 minutes left. We're not just going to run, and it doesn't matter if it's 3 and out. Because we're going to win anyways. Because it wasn't that situation. There was still plenty of time left. So he's thinking, we need to get first downs. We don't got to just worry about running the clock out. We need to just get first downs. Now, if you're critical because you think he should have been running to get the first downs, I get that. But clearly he was just going for first downs and thought passing a couple times is the way to get that done. Obviously he was wrong, but I'm okay with it because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, you can't just run the ball out here because if they don't get the first down, obviously I didn't know, but I was very, very confident if San Fran didn't get those first downs there at the end, that KC was going to come back and score. So I'm thinking, don't just worry about running it or not passing it. Just worry about getting the first down. And I'm thinking, San Fran, do whatever you need to do to get the first down, however you think that is. Clearly, Shanahan thought that was by passing because I think he thought Kansas City thought they were just going to run, so let's try to surprise him. Well, it didn't work. But I don't think the play calling down the stretch was that bad for San Fran. I really don't.
In my opinion, I thought he played. It's tough because, with most any other quarterback, I think you can make the argument if you can kind of stick with your game plan. But it's just with Mahomes, we all know how quickly he can get the ball down the field and how quickly he can score. So to me, it felt like once they got to the fourth quarter that, we're up by 10, I think you do run the ball. And I think you do take the ball out of Mahomes' hand as much as you can. Because, even though, you might have a 3 and out and you just ran the ball 3 times, well, let's see, you killed a minute and a half off the clock versus if you had 3 incompletions and you killed 20 seconds off the clock. I just think it's inevitable that Mahomes was going to score at some point, I felt. But I just think the less amount of time that you give him, the more then the Chiefs are panicking and the more the Chiefs are trying to make the big plays instead of the 49ers panicking and them having to try and make the big plays.
And I think a lot of people are going to agree with you there. I just feel like I personally felt, regardless of how bad the Chiefs offense had played up until that point, they only had 10 points with 10 minutes left in the fourth or something like that. Regardless of that, I just felt that KC was going to score. You just knew it was going to come. And with that offense, they scored 28 and a quarter against Houston to overcome 24-0 lead. They're going to score fast. So I don't think it was a matter of how much time was left. I think they were going to score regardless. So I don't think taking off a minute and a half compared to 25 seconds is really that big of a deal because I don't think it would have mattered unless there was literally like a minute and a half left down 10. I think Kansas City was going to come back. So like I said, I think it wasn't a matter of just trying to run the clock out. It was trying to get 2, 3, 4 first downs strung together. And I think that's what Shanahan was thinking. Turns out his play calling wasn't what got the job done. But I personally looked at that situation a lot differently than others. I don't think with 7 minutes left, that's plenty of time for KC. They were going to score with 2 minutes. They were going to get, if that team needs a touchdown, they can score it in 1 minute. They can score it in 5 minutes. I honestly think that about them. They're just that good offensively when they need to be. So I don't think the answer was just running 3 times. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously there's a lot of headlines that can come from this too. You talk about another positive headline though, Andy Reid finally getting that Super Bowl. You can't not be happy for the guy. He's come so close so many times. He's had solid teams. Now finally is able to win, and he does.
He's not like one coach. I don't think I haven't seen a fan that has anything bad to say about the guy. Everybody feels good about the fact that he won one. I think everybody, even if you wanted San Fran, they're happy with the fact that Andy Reid won one because I mean the dude's been an NFL head coach for over 20 seasons. He's been in the playoffs darn near every season and just can't seem to get it done. Yeah. And it's good to see he finally got one. And you can clearly see he was enjoying it. He said, Grant, and I know it's kind of the thing to say, but he said, if I could have this team every year, I'd coach for another 20 years. He clearly just loves this team and enjoyed the season, and it was really good to see him win.
And it's really awesome, too, to see a team really embrace with what he does, that makes him successful, and they're all kind of getting on board with it, too, which I think is really cool. So we can probably move on from that now. I guess maybe just last comment is what I want to say is, and agree with me, disagree with me, obviously whatever on this one. I think it's fair to say that both of these teams, maybe not back to the Super Bowl, but I think they'll both be competing for another Super Bowl again next year.
I don't think San Fran will be.
Really?
No.
Seattle, a team in their own division, has a lot of salary cap left, like a lot. And they have a lot of picks. San Fran, I think, has like one pick in the first 4 rounds, and they have a quarterback that I don't believe in. I think they're going to be like the Rams, I mean, they might make the playoffs next year, but I don't think they're going to be that good. KC is the Super Bowl favorites, on the other hand, and I think they got a really good shot at making it back. When you got Mahomes, you got a shot.
Yeah. I just think with how good the 49ers defense is, I don't think there's, to me, I just can't see them not at the very least competing for another division title and have a fair run at the Super Bowl.
And that defense is really young too, so it looks really good for them. But LA's offense was really young too, and they didn't do that great this year. Granted, I think it's easier to be consistent on defense than it is offense.
That's true.
But I don't know. I mean, San Fran's not going to be bad, but I don't think they're going to be that great next year. I really don't. But we'll see.
We'll see.
They just
anyway. Well, you mean Miami? Miami's going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. On Facebook, I said the Cleveland Browns versus the Detroit Lions next year. So.
I don't know. I think Dolphins beat the Browns in the AFC Championship.
Maybe if they get Brady.
Yeah, well, maybe. You never know. So we're going to move on from that. We kind of talked about systems earlier. So a phrase that is thrown around a lot is system quarterback. And a lot of times, system quarterback is thrown around as kind of a derogatory it's almost a bad thing to be a system quarterback. And I'm not going to lie, a long time, that's kind of how I felt. I felt, he's not really good. It's just he thrives in a good, he just thrives in a system, in a solid system. And I can't remember who was talking about it. It may have been Colin Cowherd. I wouldn't be surprised. I agree with Colin Cowherd on a number of different topics, as you do too.
As do I.
So it may have been him, but I can't remember for the life of me. But someone was talking about how, system quarterback really maybe is not that bad of a thing. You think about it this way, if you have a coach, like an Andy Reid, for example, who's been around for a long time, has had different kinds of quarterbacks, different strengths, weaknesses. He's always been able to build a solid system to where your players and your quarterbacks especially thrive in. He had Donovan McNabb, thrived with Donovan McNabb. Donovan McNabb is not the same as Alex Smith, who is not the same as Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly.
He's had different quarterbacks, and he's been able to thrive with all of them. So what is your opinion on this? Because system quarterback is something that is kind of thrown around, good or bad. What's your take on it?
I mean, typically, if you have the label system quarterback on you, it means you're probably not like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Like I know some people do it and call Brady a system quarterback, but if you call Brady, Mahomes, Peyton Manning back in the day, Rodgers a system quarterback, to me, like, you're just crazy. No, those guys are Hall of Fame quarterbacks. They'd be good regardless of who they had, regardless of where they're playing. But system quarterback isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like Alex Smith, especially in San Fran, yes, he's pretty much a system quarterback. But if you have a good system and if you have a good defense and good running game and pieces around you, sometimes that's all you need. The example I'm going to use, because we just mentioned Alex Smith, was when the Niners lost to the Ravens in the Super Bowl. I I was never huge on Kaepernick when he was coming up. He was a good quarterback. He torched the Packers in the playoffs. He ran for like over 100 yards. He was good, but I don't think he was the better option compared to Smith, because all that team needed, all they needed was a system quarterback. That's literally all they needed. They had Frank Gore, who's probably a third or fourth best running back in the league that year. They had probably the best defense in football. And I think they had Crabtree, if I remember right. And they had pieces around the quarterback to do good. All they needed was that defense to do what they do, the offense to score a couple of two touchdowns and just keep the clock running towards the end. Well, Kaepernick was that guy who could get you, big plays, but he wasn't the guy the Niners needed. They just needed an Alex Smith who was going to get first downs, get a touchdown here and there, and keep that clock running in the fourth quarter when you're winning because your defense. But they went with Kaepernick, and they ended up losing. Now, yes, the defense didn't play that great the Super Bowl, but depending on who's at quarterback, how the game's being played and run through a half makes things completely different. All that team needed was a system quarterback. So being a system quarterback is not a bad thing necessarily.
Yeah. No, and I agree. I think if I'm a coach in the NFL, I would want to have a player that will embrace a system, that will take in a system as its own. Like we mentioned, if your system is like a Tom Brady who's going to throw probably only 5-6 yards at a time, maybe those medium round plays, not is going to throw many deep balls, then you build your team around that. If you're like a Patrick Mahomes who airs it down the field and has a lot of kind of improvising plays, I guess I wouldn't say improvising as part of a system, but nonetheless, Mahomes is a deep ball thrower and likes to get those deep plays. Then you build an athletic and a fast team, a big team that can go out there and make those big plays happen. So I think, if I'm a coach, I would rather have a player that is willing to embrace a system. But as a head coach, you also have to realize, too, that you can have a system, but if you don't have a system that you're not willing to work with to show out those players' strengths and not their weaknesses, then you got to be able to do that too. And I think Andy Reid does a phenomenal job of it.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, but when we were talking about the new head coach hirings, the Giants hired I'm already blanking on his name because it was the Patriots wide receiver coach. Seemingly the nobody. But anyways, his interview beforehand was saying we want to look at what we got, figure out what we got, and build a system around that. That's exactly what you do. You don't you can, if you've been good for 10, 15 years with the system, you can, and you're already proven, then you get free agents that fit your system. That's like the Patriots do. But otherwise, you build your system around the players. You want your system and your personnel to fit together.
Right.
Whether that means, if you're bad, I'd say you figure out a system, or you find out what players you have and you build a system around that. If you're really proven, and if you're a proven team, you just need one or two pieces, then you go out and find those pieces that fit your system. That's what New England's done. So as a coach, if you have a quarterback that fits your system, it's perfect. Obviously, I'd take Mahomes, whether you're the Niners back in the day when they lost to the Ravens or you're the Chiefs, I'd take Mahomes, because that guy's amazing. It don't matter really what your system is. But if you have a quarterback who fits your system, it's so much better. If all you need is a guy who dink and dunks, then that's all you need. You want your player, your personnel, and your system to fit together. And if you have a system quarterback like Alex Smith with the Niners, it worked. All they needed was first down and keep that chain moving. Yeah, he wasn't going to give you 50-yard bombs, but he was going to give you what your team needed. If you had Alex Smith for the Chiefs now, they wouldn't have won the Super Bowl. They went 11-5, 10-6 because he's a good quarterback and he got first downs, but that's not what they needed. They needed a guy who's going to air off the ball, the Tyreek Hill, the Sammy Watkins, and to get out of the pocket at times. That's what Mahomes is. So yes, being a system quarterback isn't necessarily a bad thing. You want your personnel and your system to fit together, and I don't think people understand that. They just grab players just because they're good or they looked good here. Let's just get him. He looked good on the Patriots. He looked good on the Bengals. Let's bring him here. Well, yes, but if you're comparing two players, you got to find who fits best for what you're trying to do. And people don't realize that. They just see talent and want it.
Right. And I think it's another thing, too, that, if you wanted to, you can make an argument that any quarterback that has ever had success in NFL history, you can make an argument, oh, well, they're just part of a good system, I mean, you truly could. Now, obviously, I don't think that's the case. I think some systems are more set in stone, kind of like a New England Patriots type system versus like a Baltimore Ravens system with Lamar Jackson, who's a lot of scrambling and trying to figure out plays. But nonetheless, that's kind of how they built that system there. I'm not going to use that argument. I'm just saying a lot of people, you really could if you wanted to. But,
yeah.
Well, we can move on from that. Move on to some Jacksonville Jaguars. It came out not too long ago that supposedly they're going to be playing 2 games in London. So before forfeiting 2 of their home games in Jacksonville to be playing in London. Nick, what's your opinion on this?
Well, see, and I read the explanation why, but I don't really understand it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not smart enough. But it was something about to like increase local revenue to later on get a new stadium. But how are you doing that by sacrificing 2 games and playing them in London? You're only getting 6 home games that you're getting money from them. So I guess I'm confused. But if I were a player, I'd be like, really? We got to go to London twice? We only get to play at home 6 times? That kind of sucks.
No, I think if I'm a player, I'm not very happy about it personally. You obviously talk about, you're going to London twice, forfeiting 2 games in Jacksonville at home. But, like, you're talking about different time changes. You're going to have to try and adjust quickly. They might not be back-to-back of those home games. So, I don't know. Personally, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of it. I think if the NFL wants to go global, I think there are other places that they should go global first before London. Because, it would be cool to expand the game to London and out there. But you also have to think for the players' side of it. If you can kind of keep things in this time zone, for the most part where it's not as screwed up, like maybe like a Toronto or like a Mexico City or something like that, or Vancouver, something like that even, I think I would be more appealed to that than having the games in London. I don't know.
I mean, you can have they've had games in London for a long time now, so at least keeping a couple there a year, I think, is fine.
Yeah.
They don't need to go all out. But back to the players, like, that would suck. And for their sake, I hope it's just like back-to-back weeks, like say week 6 and 7 you're in London. That way you only got to travel there one time. But I highly doubt that's going to be the case.
Right.
You're going to have to say go there week 4 and then go back there like week 9. That would just, I don't know, that would suck.
Yeah, it really would. So I got not a whole lot to talk about with this. I figured I'd bring it up just to see what you thought about it. But get to move on to some baseball now. The season is over, but there has been some fairly big things going on. We're going to start with the Philadelphia Phillies. They are going to be retiring Roy Halladay's number 34 that he pitched with the Phillies, and he's a member of that team. And I believe it's going to be the anniversary of his perfect game that he threw as well, too, against the Marlins.
That's cool.
So that's super cool. When you first heard about this, what did you think about it?
I just thought, good for him, good for them. Roy Halladay's a heck of a player, and he deserves his jersey being retired. And obviously, what happened with his sudden death is really unfortunate. But now it's kind of going to be a time to remember him and celebrate what he did as a baseball player too. And I just thought, that's cool. Good for them.
Yeah, that's super cool for sure. I believe also he is up for getting into the Hall of Fame this next season, which I don't. Or no, he already was. Sorry, he already was in the past. Already made it in there. So my bad.
Oh really? I guess I didn't even realize that either.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, on that one. He is not going to be up. He is already in. So that is that.
Somehow I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I believe, and I could be 100% wrong on that too, which would not be a good look. But oh well, here probably won't be the last time. But nonetheless, I think super super cool for Halladay for that. For his family, I think that's awesome, and really cool. So I'll definitely be looking forward to that. Colorado legend, too, went to Arvada West High School out here in Colorado. Was one of the best players that we've ever seen in any sport out here, too. So super cool on that aspect as well, that it does show that, yes, you can pitch in Colorado and have success. Roy Halladay was an example of that. But anyways, there was a big trade that happened. Maybe. We're not sure if it's going to go through, right? But maybe. So we'll just get into the details, and then we'll talk about all the different snags and stuff that's going on with it. So essentially, it was a 3-team trade between the Dodgers, the Red Sox, and the Twins. The Dodgers were going to be getting Mookie Betts and David Price from the Red Sox. The Red Sox were going to be getting Alex Verdugo from the Dodgers and Gratterall from the Twins. And the Twins were to get Maeda, the Kenta Maeda, from the Dodgers. Well, that all sounded good, and it all sounded like it was going to happen. But then there was a snag with the Gratterall side of things. And, well, now it looks like the Twins aren't even going to be a part of it anymore. Yeah. Gratterall stays with the Twins. Maeda stays with the Dodgers. And so far, this trade is kind of halted. So what do you think about this whole mess that's going on right now with MLB is with this trade?
I think a lot of people are kind of like, all right, this ain't cool, Boston. I think a lot of people think Boston realized, okay, what we just done was probably stupid. And now they're trying to find a way, not necessarily out of it, but trying to finagle their way into getting more. Now, maybe it's completely legitimate and they have legit reasons. From what I read, something about the physical didn't sit right with them about Gratterall, and they must have found something that makes them think that the Gratterall is only going to be a reliever and isn't going to be able to be a starter. Well, they should have already known something about that because the Twins weren't planning on using him as a starter this year anyways. They were just planning on using him as a reliever. And then they wanted another top 10 prospect from the Twins, and the Twins aren't going to do that because all they're getting is Maeda. However, I think the trade's going to eventually happen, not with the Twins, but I think Betts is going to go to the Dodgers somehow because it sounds like both teams want to make it happen. Sorry, now I don't remember the original question you asked me, but I'm just going to get into it. So I'm just going to pretend for an instance that the trade that we all thought was going to happen, that was agreed upon on Tuesday, happened. So and the Red Sox get Gratterall and Verdugo, and Betts goes to the Dodgers. So as a Twin fan, I was happy because I don't want Betts to go to the Dodgers because they're really, really good with that addition. But an AL team gets worse in the Red Sox, who you might be competing against in wild card, and the Twins got Maeda. A lot of Twins fans are going to be like, well, you got rid of Gratterall, who's a pretty good prospect and probably our best prospect for pitching. He throws 100, and all you got is Maeda. Well, you know what? I don't care. I mentioned many times, at the end of the day, a prospect is just a prospect. They haven't proven themselves yet. Gratterall played a little bit last year. He didn't look that great. And the Twins were planning on using him as a reliever anyways. The Twins don't need that many relievers. They need starters. So trading Gratterall for a proven starter, yeah, Maeda ain't no ace, but he's a proven starter / reliever in the playoffs. He's been in the playoffs many times. He's started many regular season games. He's got like a career 4 ERA. The dude's going to help us get to the playoffs. So I was very happy with the trade. But now it sounds like the Twins won't be in on it. So, I mean, I'm glad that Betts might not go to the Dodgers because I don't want him to, but I want Maeda. So I don't know. But I guess what are your takes on, do you think Betts will end up going to the Dodgers? And do you think, and who do you think won that deal if it went through?
Yeah.
Obviously the Dodgers wanted, but.
Right. Yeah. No, I think eventually they're going to work something out to where it does go through. Mm-hmm. I would be surprised if it didn't. But I think something will go through there for sure. The Dodgers, they've always been a big team, a big proponent of getting big name guys out there. They're always involved with trade rumors, always involved with, kind of like they're almost like the Yankees of the NL. Their name's involved with every single player, whether there's any leverage behind it or anything. Their name is always involved. If the Dodgers are to get Mookie Betts and David Price as well too, the Dodgers choke a lot. We all know once they get to the playoffs, the Dodgers are a team that chokes. They can't find a way to win. It doesn't matter how good their teams are. personally, I think this season, if Betts does come over and Price also does come over, I think on the offensive side of things, I think they're going to be fine. I think on the pitching side of things, it's going to be tough. Now, they also have Dustin May coming up too, who pitched a little bit last season, who is one of their top prospects for pitching as well. Kershaw's going to compete. Walker Buehler is going to compete. Obviously, losing Hyun-Jin Ryu, and potentially, I would surprise if they don't try and trade Kenta Maeda. Obviously, they might now with the Twins, but maybe potentially with other team to try and get something. I don't think that they are going to go all the way. I would not be surprised if they do by any means. I'm not going to be surprised with this roster. I think they have a huge chance too. I just don't feel that on the pitching side of things they're going to be as good. They're going to win an NL West like they do every year and probably compete in the playoffs. I just don't know how far they're going to go. And then on the Red Sox side of things, Verdugo, a solid player. Obviously he's got some legal stuff going on right now too. So who even knows if that aspect of it is going to go through. And I was a fan of the Twins getting Maeda. You talk about this whole offseason with the pitching, they weren't getting anyone. They got Homer Bailey and Rich Hill. That was about it. And now, they get, a decent pitcher in Kenta Maeda. Obviously not a number one or number two, but a solid mid to back end of the rotation type pitcher. I think that's huge. But I don't know. We'll have to see. I think this trade will go through, and I'm sure the Dodgers will get Mookie Betts and David Price, but we'll have to see. I hope they don't.
Well, and I don't mind the Dodgers, but I don't really want them to get him either because that just vaults him into World Series favorites, and they're going to be a very hard team to beat. But I think the trade's going to go through, and if I'm a Dodger fan, I'm ecstatic because, yeah, I know you have your concerns about the pitching, but let's say the trade that we thought was going to go down happened, like losing Maeda. Yeah, you don't want to lose Maeda, but I don't think he's going to be the difference between you winning the World Series or not. I mean, you can maybe find the Dodgers will be able to find a guy to replace him, but adding Betts, like you can't pass that up. So that's just going to vault them into National League favorites. I guess they probably already were, but I just don't get what the Red Sox are doing though. Like I know Betts is going to get a lot of money, and you might not want to trade him for that, but it's Mookie Betts. He won MVP 2 years ago. And if you are going to trade him, get a lot for him. I mean, you got to be able to get loads for Mookie Betts. You can't settle for Verdugo and Gratterall. And apparently they're not settling. But even Gratterall and a top 10 prospect and Verdugo, that's not enough. It's Mookie Betts, for gosh sakes. I will give them this. It's kind of weird because it was the same two teams a while back, the Dodgers and the Red Sox, that made a blockbuster deal in August with, of what was it, 7 years ago maybe, with Adrian Gonzalez, Carl Crawford, Josh Beckett going to the Dodgers. And I was thinking, like, what the heck? Red Sox just got hosed. What are they doing? And the Dodgers didn't end up winning World Series out of it, but they were good. But it actually helped the Red Sox in the long run. The prospects they got from the Dodgers didn't necessarily pan out, but the Red Sox had so much money freed up that they were able to go out and get guys who helped them win the World Series the next year or 2 years later. They got like Johnny Gomes and some other guys. But I don't think being that kind of worked out for you should give you reason to trade Betts and try it all over again. The chances that working again, I think, are very slim. You don't just trade Mookie Betts for little to nothing before the season even starts. If you're going to trade him at the deadline. Normally you get more at the deadline, and then you still get 4 months out of Mookie Betts. Don't trade him now for this little. I don't get what they're doing at all.
No, I don't either. And going off of that too, if I'm the Boston Red Sox now, seeing how much everything isn't going right with this, I'm almost using this as an advantage. I think I'm trying to keep Mookie Betts. I think any number that Mookie Betts wants for money, I'm giving it to him. I think there's a very few amount of people that are worth over $400 million. Personally, I don't think Mookie Betts is one of them. But if Mookie Betts wants $400 million, I think you got to give it to him if you're the Boston Red Sox. And I can't imagine Mookie Betts being that greedy of a player and doing that. But you're talking about a team that was coming, not too long off of winning the World Series. And You have Mookie Betts there, who was the integral part, obviously winning the MVP that season. I just can't imagine why you wouldn't want to try and keep him now.
And you're the Boston Red Sox. You're like the second or third most relevant team in baseball history behind the Yankees. I mean, I'm not saying they're the second or third best, but they're the second or third most relevant team there is. They have all the money you can ask for. You're Boston. Like, what are you doing? I don't get it. However, the other thing I want to point out, like, if the Dodgers almost got Betts for that, why aren't other teams, or why weren't other teams trying to get him? Like, how can you pass on Mookie Betts? It's kind of funny because I had just thrown out this like totally nonchalant, like hypothetical trade for the Twins with Betts. I knew it wasn't going to happen. And they hadn't even talked about it. But it's kind of funny because I did that, and then shortly later, Betts was traded to the Dodgers, and the Twins are involved. But if you were the Twins or the Rays, or well, maybe not the Rays because they're so low market, but the Twins or the Cardinals or anybody, why aren't you trying to get Betts? If the dude's there for the taking, go for him. Like, offer. I would give up Verdugo. What did the Dodgers give up? Verdugo, Mayetta, and they got cash back. They barely give up anything. If you're a contender, I'd give up 3 prospects in a heartbeat for Mookie Betts, even if he doesn't re-sign with you. If you get him and you don't win the World Series and he leaves, it sucks. But you can't say he didn't try. And the chances the dude's like 27. So what if he did stay with you? You'd be stacked for the next how many years? I don't know why other teams aren't pursuing this. Now I'd be pursuing this now more than ever.
Absolutely. Just to know now, especially on that aspect too, that we maybe won't have to give up as much as we thought we were going to have to try and get the guy. I mean, you mentioned it multiple times now, but it's 100% true. The Dodgers gave up essentially nothing. The Twins, essentially gave up nothing. They gave up Gratterall. I mean, obviously that side of it isn't going to go through now because the way it looks now. But the Twins barely gave up anything. The Dodgers barely gave up anything. But the Red Sox are getting rid of Mookie Betts and David Price. It's just, to me, if I'm the Boston Red Sox, and I guess let's just throw the Twins out of it. Sorry about it. The Twins aspect is done here. So we'll just talk straight Red Sox Dodgers. If I'm the Boston Red Sox, I think I'm asking for, Verdugo. Sure, he can just be a throw-in player, I guess. So we can keep him there. And then I would throw in a Max Muncy. I would ask for him. I would ask for a Dustin May type pitcher who's coming up. Obviously, like I said, pitched a little bit last season. Who's there? And then maybe I would ask for, maybe another mid-level player in the big leagues, or maybe a not as well-known prospect for Price. And I think if you do that, I think that's awesome. I think then it's fine.
Or that young catcher that the Dodgers got coming up. I'm blanking on his name, but that dude's good too. Yeah, yes. If you're gonna get rid of Betts, make sure you get something for him. Like, I don't understand what Boston's doing. I really don't. Oh, and just real quick, I'm gonna throw the Twins back in here because I forgot to mention it until you mentioned Price. Part of the reason I'm happy this trade might not happen is because the thing I didn't like about the trade, I loved that the Twins got Mayetta for Gratterall. But the thing I really didn't like was that Price was leaving because the Twins need a starter. And I do think they're going to try to get one at the deadline. And I thought Price was probably going to be that number one option come deadline. Well, if Price is a Dodger, he ain't going to be dealt at the deadline because he'll be a Dodger and the Dodgers are going to keep him. So if that trade doesn't go through, then maybe the Twins have a shot at Price yet, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see nonetheless. I think I've never really seen trades get nixed, like big trades, because of injuries and stuff going on with physicals and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really interested, and I know you will too, following this really closely to see what ends up happening. Hopefully we have some updates for you, and then by the next time, maybe the trade will go through. We'll have to see. And then that also kind of holds up a potential another trade too between the Angels and the Dodgers. So the Dodgers the Angels trade Luis Renfroe and prospects for Jock Peterson, Ross Stripling, and I believe there's another player too thrown in there that I'm drawing a blank on the name too, as well. So I guess what's your thoughts on this trade? Let's just assume that the other one goes through. If this one also goes through too, then because of that, what do you like this deal?
Oh, I love this about the Angels, and I didn't even realize Ross Stripling was throwing in there. That's another benefit. But if this goes through, I'm ecstatic as an Angels fan. Yeah, Jock Peterson ain't no Mookie Betts. Jock Peterson ain't great, but Jock Peterson is a good outfielder. He's been, he struggled. He had his big time struggles, 2 or 3 years ago with batting average, but he started to figure it out. He got his average up a lot last year, and this dude hits home runs. He hit 30 some this last year. He got 36 home runs last year. He's got 123 career home runs. He's pretty sure-handed in the outfield, and he's a lefty. That's the big part, because the Angels' offense is going to be good, or they should be. But a lot of those guys are righties. Upton, Pujols, Rendon, Trout, obviously, they're all righties. So if you can throw in a lefty there, I think is La Stella a lefty? I believe La Stella's a lefty, and then Ohtani when he hits, but that's not often. You don't have that many lefties. So if you can throw Peterson in the outfield and throw a big old lefty bat with all them righties, that's huge for the Angels. But if the Dodgers don't get Betts and then this trade goes through, that's a rough for the Dodgers, because I think the only reason they got rid of Peterson is to make room for Betts and to just get rid of some money.
Yeah.
So that would blow. That would not feel good as a Dodger fan.
Yeah, and another thing too, Jock Peterson, obviously outfielder, mostly well known for. He played a lot of first base too these last couple seasons as well too. So potentially you can throw him at first base every once in a while, give Pujols some rest. Maybe just mainly play him at DH. But I'm really excited for the Angels and the aspect of that. Mike Trout is he's going to have some help. He's going to have some guys on the offense with Rendon there. Obviously mentioned Ohtani. La Stella is really solid. Now Jock Peterson and himself. The pitching is that's kind of the question mark right now. I think the pitching could be – I don't think it's going to be terrible. I don't think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be a middle-of-the-road type pitching staff. But if they get hot and the pitching staff really surprises some people, I am not going to be very surprised if by the end of the season, the Angels are competing for a wild card spot. I think the Astros are going to win the division. I can't see them not winning the division, but I think the Angels are not going to be too far behind and potentially in a wild card opportunity.
Wild card I can see, but I'm not super high in the Angels. It's crazy to think they're not going to be decent with that offense, but for the last 2 or 3 years, I think people have expected a lot more out of the Angels, and it hasn't happened. And I really haven't been that high on them. Obviously, they got to have Trout, who's probably the best player in baseball. But yeah, I just don't believe in their pitching. Their pitching is not good enough. But maybe it's good enough to get to the playoffs if your offense is really good, which they have the potential to be. But as good as Trout is, he's had his injury problems. Upton missed a lot of the season last year. Pujols, is 36 or something like that. Simmons, I believe, had injury problems. And I don't know if that offense is going to be good enough to get that pitching staff into the playoffs. Plus, they're in a very hard division. I think the Angels and Twins are similar. They don't have very good pitching, but they have really good lineups. But I think the Twins are a little bit better in each of those spots. But the Twins have the benefit where they have a very easy division. The Angels have to go through the A's and the Astros, and the Rangers are going to be improved. And then there's the Mariners. But they have 3 really good teams, 2 really good teams, and a decent team in the Rangers in that division to compete against. And I just don't think it's going to be enough. Adding Peterson is really going to help. Adding Rendon is really going to help. And it's going to be interesting, like you mentioned, to see how Trout does with another really good guy around him. I don't know if you remember, but when we were talking about Trout and Yelich a while back, I mentioned how Trout might be better, but over the last 2 or 3 years, Yelich has by far been more valuable just because he's not walking as much, which means he's getting more hits and more home runs and more RBIs because he's not walking, where it's not necessarily a bad thing for Trout. It's just the way it is because nobody pitches to him, so he just walks. Well, you can't drive a guy in with a walk unless his base is loaded. But now, what are you going to do? Just walk Trout 150 times so Rendon can kill you? No. You can try to walk them both, but that's probably not going to work. So now with Rendon there with Trout could have his best season yet maybe. And that's going to be interesting. I just don't think with that pitching staff they're going to make it because I don't think the offense is quite good enough yet to overcome that.
So I agree with you on one aspect, not so much in the other. I think the offense, I think, is going to be pretty good. You have a lineup with Rendon, who's a solid all-around hitter, average-wise too. Obviously Mike Trout needs no introduction. Peterson, the average, it's okay. He's going to hit home runs. There's no doubt about that. He's going to hit home runs. He's probably going to drive in runs. And Albert Pujols, is fairly productive still. Not the Albert Pujols that he once was, but he's okay. And Justin Upton as well too. I think the pitching staff doesn't need to be solid for them to win. Now, I will say this, coming from a Colorado Rockies fan, there has been many, many seasons that we have had one of the best if not the best offense in the league any particular year. But what was always setting us back was that the pitching was just as worse. So we can never make up anything. I think the Angels pitching is going to be a little bit better. So I think the Angels, if they're able to go into games, and I say only, 5 or 6 runs a game, if they can get 6 runs a game, I don't think the pitching has to be as good. Now, having said that, you don't want guys going out there and every starter's going 5 innings, giving up 7 hits and 8 runs, or 5 hits and 5 runs. That's not very good. But I think if the offense is able to put up around 6 runs a game, 7 runs maybe, I think they'd be pretty solid and may potentially have a run. Now, I think when they get to the playoffs, I think that'll be their biggest issue. We both agree. Pitching matters 100 times more in the playoffs than really good hitting. Timely hitting is huge, but pitching is far more valuable in the playoffs than hitting is. So, I don't know.
I guess we'll find out. We might have our Angels preview done now.
Yeah, Angels fan, you don't have to come on anymore.
I just don't think they're going to have the health or the pitching, enough health and pitching to get there, but we'll see. The Peterson addition is really going to help them. And I think what's the big thing is now that offense is even better, maybe they can add that arm that they desperately need at the deadline, and that can really change things. So you never know what can happen there. If they can add an arm, then they could be a very legit contender. We'll see. I have my doubts about them.
We're going to move on now to some NBA. Just kind of going back, like NFL, there probably isn't going to be a whole lot to talk about with NFL because that's over. Baseball is kind of starting to pick up again, so hopefully we have some more to talk about.
I'm so ready for opening day, man.
Me too. And then NBA, obviously, besides the trade deadline, the only other stuff that we're going to have to talk about, that already happened. The trade deadline already happened. But the only other stuff we're going to have to talk about is playoff runs. And then when the hockey trade deadline rolls around too, we're going to talk about that. So I think in the future weeks, it's going to be probably, I'd say, a mainly NBA, probably NHL podcast with some MLB mixed in.
February is my least favorite month of the year, and it's the worst month of the year for sports besides the one day where you have the Super Bowl. That's why I'm very thankful that the trades that happened recently happened, or maybe happened, because they gave us something to talk about. Because February sucks. I hate February.
But anyway, how you really feel, apparently. So we are going to go into the NBA. Like I mentioned, the only stuff we're going to talk about with the NBA today is going to be trade stuff. That's going to be because it's the only stuff that's happened. And then NHL, when that trade deadline, I believe, is the 24th, when that rolls around, we'll probably only be talking about that on that podcast. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of trades in the NHL as well, too. So NBA, there's a lot of trades that went down, and the majority of them happened on the trade deadline, a little bit before, too. So we're going to start with this 4-team trade that went down. 2 of our team. Well, sorry, I forgot. You're not a Timberwolves fan. Never mind. You're a LeBron fan. Well, my team is involved in this one. So a 4-team trade. The teams were involved: the Houston Rockets, Minnesota Timberwolves, Denver Nuggets, and Atlanta Hawks. So the Rockets, the players that they are going to be getting. So I'm just going to go through who the teams got, and then we'll go into that after it. So the Houston Rockets get Robert Covington, Jordan Bell, and an Atlanta 2nd-round pick. The Timberwolves get Evan Turner, Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, and Juancho Hernan-Gomez. The Nuggets get Shabazz Napier, Keita Bates-Diop, Noah Vonleh, and Gerald Green. And then the Hawks get Nene.
And Capella.
Or yeah, oh yeah, and the Rockets, also got Capella. Or sorry, the Hawks also got Capella as well too. So thank you for that. I did not write that down, but
they just got an A that they got screwed.
yeah, the Hawks also got Capella. I forgot to write that one down, but yes, that is true. So overall, this 4-team trade, and now some of these players didn't stick around on those teams, and we'll get to that shortly. But overall, what did you think about this trade? I guess who do you think won it out of the 4 teams?
I think everybody benefited for the most part, except so far, and sorry to say, I don't really see where Denver benefits from this. I think they did this with the hopes of doing something else probably, and they did end up trading Napier after this. But I see positives for everybody else. Minnesota got Malik Beasley, who I don't know what your take is on Beasley watching him, but I think Beasley's a very solid player, and he's a player I'd love to have on my team. The other guys they got, I don't think are really going to make an impact. Turner, Gomez, Vanderbilt, and Turner, and it sounds like they made buyout Turner anyways. But what they did, they freed up, more salary space. That's good, I believe. Houston, they lost Capella, which I'm not a huge fan of, but they got Rocco, and Covington's not great, but he played really good the other day against the Lakers for the Rockets, and for the first game with Rocco, it looked like that trade paid off. So we'll see how that does. But it's interesting now because the Rockets are playing like pretty much without a center. They're playing with like 6-7 guys and less, and I don't think that's going to work for a whole season, but we'll find out. Atlanta, I think, are the winners of this because I don't think Capella and Nene are going to, vault Atlanta up. I mean, they're bottom feeders right now, but they barely lost anybody in this whole trade, and they end up with one of the best players involved in this 4-team trade in Capella, if not the best player. So I think Atlanta's the big winners.
I will say I can see what you're talking about with the Denver Nuggets as far as, that they didn't look very good. On our side of things, though, I really liked Malik Beasley. I was a fan of him. He's a very athletic player who is developing a really good shot. He's a really solid 3-point shooter now. We had this last offseason offered him a contract extension to stay with us. He declined it. So he turned that down. I think if he would have accepted that, I think he would have stayed, but he declined it. So obviously, I don't know. Maybe he wanted more. Maybe he thought he was worth more. I don't know. But we traded him. As far as Jared Vanderbilt, I was okay with getting rid of him kind of for the fact of that he was kind of up and down with the G League, didn't really do a whole lot. He played some minutes, but didn't do a whole lot with that. And then as far as Hernan Gomez, he's a huge fan favorite. He's a good locker room guy. I know him and Nikola Jokic are really, really close friends. But as far as on the court, didn't provide a whole lot. He was an okay player. He could shoot a little bit, but he didn't play enough. And with how deep the Nuggets are, Hernan Gomez, he wasn't going to get any solid minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited on the Minnesota Timberwolves side of things because it sounds like Hernan Gomez and Beasley are going to be getting some pretty solid minutes from what I've been hearing. So I'll be excited to see. I hope they thrive. I hope they play well.
Well, yeah, there's nobody left on the Timberwolves team, so.
Yeah. Well, I guess I got to play sometime then.
Yeah.
And then, as far as the Nuggets, Bates Diop, I've heard, obviously he was a second-round pick, and talking to one of my buddies before, has kind of been playing like a late first-round type pick. But decent shooter, fair player, so we'll have to see how that goes. Von Lay, I'm not expecting a whole much from. We ended up getting rid of Gerald Green, so he's not even on our team anymore. And Napier, yep, which we'll get into that in a second. But overall, I think, teams got guys that they wanted. The Rockets now are a really, really short team. Obviously, it didn't matter against the Lakers because they won anyways. Did you see James Harden took the tip-off for that against JaVale McGee?
Yeah, that was funny. He really tried for it. I'll give him that.
Oh, yeah. But anyways, we can move on from that one. Move on to another trade. The Miami Heat traded Justice Winslow, Dion Waiters, and James Johnson to the Memphis Grizzlies for Andre Iguodala, Jay Crowder, and Solomon Hill. I don't know how I feel about this. I think Justice Winslow, he was kind of a player that was expected to do a lot for the Heat, and he was okay sometimes, but I don't think he ever quite hit that potential. Dion Waiters has got a ton of potential, or had potential, was not very good these last couple seasons, and then Johnson as well, kind of like a similar story. As far as Miami goes, how do you like this team look now? I think this is a really scary team in the East.
Well, I've seen a lot of people are saying Miami is the winners of the deadlines. I personally don't think that because I think the Timberwolves are, which we'll get into that. But it's a good trade. You know, Iguodala is a very solid player who's been obviously in the playoffs a lot. He's won finals. He was the finals MVP with Golden State. And Miami is one of the deepest, if not the deepest team in the league. And now this is just going to be one more quality player to throw at you. Veteran who's a great defender. And I think it's going to work out really well for them. But I don't think Iguodala is going to put them over the top. I still don't think Miami has the star power to beat the Bucks and the Raptors in the playoffs. But it should help them out. If you're the Grizzlies, you didn't get a lot back, but I think it's a good trade because Iguodala wasn't playing for you anyways. And I'm sure you heard what Dylan Brooks has had to say about Iguodala. Clearly, he's happy now that Iguodala's gone and they have players who want to play for him. So overall, this was a good trade for both teams.
Yeah, I like this especially for the Miami Heat. You know, they're a very young team. You know, they have, with Rick Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero. You know, Jimmy Butler is younger. He's obviously been around a little bit. But I think one thing that this is huge for, as far as Andre Iguodala, like you mentioned, he has playoff experience. Mm-hmm. He has finals experience. He has won. He knows what it takes to win. Yeah. He knows teams that have to be around him to win. And with a very young team that, Jimmy Butler is kind of the leader of that team. I think you have a guy like Andre Iguodala in there who has that veteran presence who should be like, yo, this is what you guys got to do once we get to the playoffs. That'll be huge on that aspect of it, at least.
Plus, not to mention, Jimmy Butler might be the best one-on-one defender on that team. Well, now you potentially don't even have to put him on a guy to shut him down because you can just put Iguodala on him and then save Butler for offense. So that's a big one. And what I forgot to mention earlier, another thing, I think the addition of Jay Crowder could be good too. This is a guy he's not great, but he can hit the three ball, and he's a scrappy player as well. And I think he fits very well with Miami. We in our debate about football, we talked about getting players that fit your team. Well, I think Iguodala and Crowder fit this Miami team, so I think it's a good trade for him.
I think so too. Jay Crowder, I'm glad you mentioned him too. We'll have to see how he does. Warriors and Timberwolves have a trade. So the Warriors acquired Andrew Wiggins, a 2021 protected first round, and a 2021 second round pick. There's some detail with picks in the NBA. I just get so confused as far as what's protected, what's not, what actual teams had the original pick, what teams don't. So whatever as far as that. And then the Timberwolves get Evans, Amari Spellman, and D'Angelo Russell for this one. Yeah. The T-Wolves are a team that, obviously you rip them probably more than anybody else that I know. A team that does not do a whole lot normally. They don't go out and get big guys, and if they do, it doesn't work out and end up trading them anyways. Jimmy Butler, wink, wink.
Yeah.
But they finally got D'Angelo Russell, the person who they've kind of wanted this whole time. What is your take on this trade overall?
All right. Listen up, Timberwolves fans. Listen up, everybody, for that matter, because you may never hear this again. The Timberwolves did an amazing job. I give them an A+++++ for this trade deadline. Like 10 pluses. They killed it. I think the Wolves could not have done any better in this trade deadline. Going back to the last trade, they got rid of a lot of players. One trade we haven't mentioned yet, they got rid of Gorgie Jang, which was a horrible contract, so that freed up a bunch of money. And they got rid of Andrew Wiggins in this deal, which I'm not kidding you when I say this. I'm being 100% truthful. If somebody would have offered me a box of popcorn, a napkin, a garbage can for Andrew Wiggins, straight up, I would have taken it. I'm not kidding you. They would have been better off without him on this team. Money he's making, it's just not worth it. He's not going to bring you anywhere over the top. The dude's decent. Every once in a while, he'll run at a 40, but it's very rare. And all he does is score. He doesn't pass. He's not an assist guy. He's not a rebound guy. Not a lockdown defender. He's just not that good. They were better off without him. But now you got something for him. You got D'Angelo Russell, which, yeah, Russell ain't like a top 10 player, but he's very good. In 2018-19, he averaged 23.6 points per game. He was an all-star. He's averaging over 21 this year. He's a good three-point shooter. He's a good assist guy. He's the point guard that the Wolves desperately needed. And the big part in this, because, yeah, D'Lo and Towns alone ain't enough. But him and Towns are very good friends with Devin Booker, and I think a lot of people think eventually Booker might be here. Now, they got a lot of work to do. Booker signed with the Suns. But freeing up Jang and other guys, they've got the salary cap now. If they can make a trade for Booker and to have D'Lo, Booker, and Towns with each other, then you have the start of potentially something great. So the Wolves have been nothing. They are nothing. For the most part, they're still nothing now. So if you're nothing, what do? Well, you do anything and anything possible to get out of there. And they pretty much traded everybody on their whole team except Okogie, Culver, and Towns. And now the future's a little bright. So I think they totally won. Yeah, they got rid of some draft picks, but who the heck cares? If your draft pick ain't a top 10 draft pick, it don't really matter in the NBA. And yes, the draft pick is going to be a good one, but it's top 3 protected. So if they're bad enough to get a top 3 pick, which right now they could, they'll still get that. I think they'd lose the pick next year. But if you're good this year, who cares about your pick next year anyways? Because like I said, if it ain't a lottery pick, it don't matter in the NBA. It very rarely is a guy going to be really good if he wasn't drafted in the lottery. So lottery picks are not as important in basketball as they are football. So to me, the Wolves totally won. The Warriors, I don't understand what they were doing. I don't know why they're even trading D'Lo. I get it. I mean, I'm guessing it's because he's a point guard, and they're thinking, well, next year, you're going to have Curry and Thompson back. We don't need that many guards, which I somewhat understand that. But D'Lo is locked up. He's good, and he's young. So I don't know why you trade him. And if you do trade him, please get something more than Andrew Wiggins. You might as well trade it for a recycling bin or a garbage can. You don't need Andrew Wiggins for D'Lo. You could have got much more. So I don't know what the Warriors were doing. I give the Timberwolves an A+++++, and the Warriors an F.
Yeah, I agree with you on this 100%. I think all the Timberwolves fans should try and get that audio clip of you saying that they won this and they got an A+++, and turn it to like a ringtone or something, because you're not saying it too often. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this. I think the Timberwolves got, like I said, the guy that they've wanted this whole time, and D'Angelo Russell, and they really won that trade, especially, Amari Spellman, who is a solid college player. Evans is okay too. Yeah. Russell, I think obviously the headliner there for that trade. So this season, obviously they're out of it. They're not even going to come close to making the playoffs this year. So next season, are the Minnesota Timberwolves competing for a playoff position?
I think it's with what they have currently, and then obviously they'll have a few more people that they get in the offseason coming in next year. I don't think is going to be quite enough. I mean, maybe they can try to get a 7 or 8 seed. It kind of depends if the 8's what it is this year, and it's probably going to be under 500. It kind of depends. I don't think they're quite there yet, but they're definitely going to be decent. I mean, you got two really good players now in Towns and Russell. But like I said, it's the future. The reason the future is bright is because if you can add a Booker, or not only have this cap to add, honestly, it can be anybody, but they have the room to make a big acquisition and get somebody else that's a legit, probably top 30 player to go with Towns and Russell. They could be really good. But currently, until they add that player, they're not competing for the playoff spots, I don't think. No.
I think it'll be close. I don't think they'll make the playoffs next year. I think they'll be an above 500 team. That's for sure. I don't think they'll have enough to make the playoffs. We'll have to see. But nonetheless, we can move on from that. Going to another trade. Cleveland Cavaliers acquired Andre Drummond from the Detroit Pistons. They gave up Brandon Knight, John Henson, and a 2023 second-round pick. The Detroit Pistons, yeah, I get it. They're a team that isn't very good, normally are not competing for a whole lot. Andre Drummond was the face. Yeah, you have Blake Griffin there, you have Luke Kennard, you have other guys there. But Andre Drummond is the face of the Detroit Pistons, and he has been for so long. I think when you look at a prototypical big, and I'm not talking about like a big nowadays who shoots a lot, can run around a little bit. Like I'm talking about like the Shaquille O'Neal type center. That is what Andre Drummond is. He's going to get you 20 plus, dang near close to 20 boards a game. Defensively, a phenomenal defender as well too. And the Pistons essentially gave up absolutely nothing. Or sorry, they got absolutely nothing back for Drummond. I don't understand a team that struggles so much to get things going. And I don't know why I'm getting so worked up about this, because I am in no way, shape, or form relatively close to being a Detroit Pistons fan. But when you have a player that is as dominant as Andre Drummond is, trading him to a Cleveland Cavaliers team who isn't very good, I don't know why you aren't asking for more. I mean, this goes back to the Mookie Betts thing. I'm not saying Andre Drummond is on the same level as Mookie Betts, but if you're going to trade Andre Drummond, get so much more for him. The Pistons got absolutely fleeced in this deal. Absolutely fleeced. They gave up Brandon Knight, who hasn't been good since college. He
hasn't been healthy since college.
Yeah, they haven't given, gave up Henson, who was okay like 6 years ago defensively, and then a second-round pick, which is essentially like a seventh-round pick in the NFL. Rarely anything comes from the second round. So I just don't understand why they thought this was a good deal. So go ahead. What do you think about it?
I don't understand this trade for either team. If you're Cleveland, you won this trade because you got a good player in Andre Drummond and you barely got rid of anything. However, Andre Drummond with Love and that terrible team, you ain't going to do anything anyway. So I don't quite get it. But anyways, they won the trade just because they simply gave up nothing. So I guess I'll take it. But if you're the Pistons, what on earth? Trading? Okay, so when you're judging whether a trade is good or bad for a team, there's two main things. Should you have traded the guy? And what did you get for him? Was it equal to what you should? Well, should they have traded Drummond? I mean, I'm fine with that. They're not going anywhere, so you might as well. But what did you get for him? Well, they got diddly squat. So this trade was terrible. They got nothing back. I don't get it. You pretty much said it all, man. I mean, they got fleeced. I just don't understand it. They got nothing. I don't get what they were doing at all. If anything, you're just going to piss off fans. And they clearly pissed off Andre Drummond, too. But I want to go back to the Cleveland thing. I mean, yeah, you won the trade because you pretty much gave up nothing, got a player in Drummond, but they're terrible. And Drummond ain't going to put him over the top. He ain't even going to get him in the playoffs. So I don't get what they're doing. To me, Cleveland should have been staying away from acquiring Drummond, and they should have just been trading Kevin Love. You're terrible. You're not going anywhere. Drummond's been in the league a long time. Love's been in the league a long time. They're not going to – those two are not your future. They should have just traded Kevin Love and played for the future if you're the Cavs. Try to trade Kevin Love to a contender and get something for him, and just stay away from don't even talk to the Pistons about Drummond. You didn't need him. So I don't get this. I totally don't get this trade. Like I said, Cleveland won because they pretty much gave up nothing to get a good player. But I just don't get what either of these teams were doing in the trade deadline.
I kind of disagree with you a little bit on the Cleveland side of things. I think it actually was a good trade for them, for the fact of, now that they have a solid center, you're not going to have to throw Kevin Love at center now. He can actually play his position. And, you have Andre Drummond out there, who I already mentioned. I'm a huge Andre Drummond fan. Mm-hmm. You have Tom Sexton there, who hasn't done a lot, but granted, he doesn't have a whole lot to work with there, too. And it's hard for him to shine there. And then Kevin Love, who I think is a solid player as well, too. This is a next year type of trade. And what I mean by that is look at the draft. More than likely, Cleveland is probably going to be getting a top 5 pick, maybe top 3. Who knows? There are some really solid players coming into the draft this next season. And I think if Cleveland is able to snag one of them, I don't think next season I'm not going to call them a playoff team because they are a very young team, besides Drummond and Love. But, I get Love Drummond is kind of young, I guess. But I think give it a couple seasons, if they do decide to still keep Drummond and Love, I think this is a trade that might be working in their favor. And you might look back at it and be like, wow, this Cleveland Cavaliers team who just made the playoffs got Andre Drummond and gave up absolutely nothing for him. I think it's going to be a good one for him.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I'm not saying they lost this trade because they didn't. They won it. Nor am I not saying they shouldn't have made this trade. Like, they won the trade. They barely gave up anything. I just think their approach and the whole deadline should have been different. They should have been sellers and trading away people, not for them. Because I just don't think Drummond and Love are young enough and good enough for them to eventually be the reason the Cavaliers go anywhere. I just don't, no matter how good they do drafting this next year, I don't think Cleveland is going to win finals or even make it close with Drummond and Love. I just don't think they will. However, let's say next year, now you have Drummond and Love to trade. Maybe eventually in the future they'll trade both of them and get something really good for them. In that case, this would be a huge deal. I just don't think there's a future of winning with those two in Cleveland. I don't think there is.
It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, like I said, this isn't going to be a next year. They're going to be a finals contender. I think you give it a couple of years, maybe a playoff team. We'll love to see from them. Timberwolves we're not done yet. There was another trade that they made. They sent Gorgie Jang to the Memphis Grizzlies for James Johnson. Personally, I don't know a whole lot about this trade other than it sounded like kind of what you were mentioning with the Timberwolves. It was essentially more of a salary dump with Jang anyways, to try and create some space there. But I guess if you have more to talk about this, what would you say?
I think this is another great trade for the Wolves. They got rid of a player he's decent, but he ain't going to bring you anywhere, and he's got a bad contract. So they dumped a bad contract, and honestly, whatever you get back for, it's just going to default because the main part of it is just getting rid of Jang and his contract. But they got James Johnson back, he's a legitimate player. I think he's like 32, but he's kind of a do-it-all scrapper type of player who's been there, done that, and he's a good addition to any team. So I think the Timberwolves totally won this trade. Again, I like I said, I can't believe it, but the Wolves did very, very, very good this week, and you know what? I'm actually happy for them. I am. I applaud them.
Man, there's not a bigger Timberwolves fan, fake Timberwolves fan than Nick Duckett right now, folks. Another trade too as well. Washington Wizards traded Jordan McRae to the Nuggets for Shabazz Napier. I think right now, I'm just going to say this. Napier is without a doubt the best Nugget of all time. I think we got to retire his jersey. I think, we got to get ready for his Hall of Fame induction. Because I'm going to be so sad to see him go. But on a serious note, Jordan McRae, I like this for the Nuggets, kind of looking up. He's kind of been averaging around 13 or so points a game and playing pretty well and has been shooting really solid from three as well, too, on a not so good Washington Wizards team. Well, I guess what do you have to say about this deal?
I know who Jordan McRae and Napier are, obviously, but I don't know enough about them to really say one's clearly better than the other, because I don't think they are. I think essentially they're about even. They're about the same. They play the same position. So I guess, I don't know. It's just swapping one player for another, one similar player for another similar player. I said that. I butchered that the way I said it. But essentially, it's just swapping one player for another who are basically equal in skill. So I don't think it's any big deal. Clearly, Denver just liked McRae more than they like Napier.
Yeah. And I like McRae. I think he'll be a solid piece off the bench. You can never have too much depth, so I think that'll be huge for them too, going forward as well. And then the final trade that happened, I didn't not get the specifics on this one. I don't know if you did or not, with the Marcus Morris trade to the LA Clippers. Do you have the specifics with that one on you or no?
I do not. Essentially, I just know that Morris went to the Clippers, and I don't think anything else. I don't think anything happened. There wasn't enough involved in that to make it really much more noteworthy than that. I don't know the specifics. I do not, but I know Morris went to the Clippers. That's what I do know.
I don't think there's much really we have to say about that one. I think, a veteran player, a tougher player on a team, on a pretty already scrappy Clippers team. I don't think you can go wrong with that. But
I looked up his stats. I didn't realize he's had 15.6 points a game this year and 5.4 rebounds. That's solid. Obviously, those numbers aren't going to translate, but this is a player who's been a lot of places, but he's experienced. He's been in the playoffs. He's a very, scrappy player. A guy like That guy is just going to piss people off, honestly, while playing. Yeah. And I hate it when my team plays against guys like that. And, obviously, as of now, my team's the Lakers. And I'm not happy that the Clippers added Marcus Morris to go against them. So I think this is a good trade for the Clippers.
Yeah, I think it is too. Like I said, I don't think there's much bad that can come from this. But so that's all the trades we had for the trade deadline. I know it's definitely the bulk of the show there. This is kind of towards the end now. NHL, not a whole lot going on. Some interesting stats. Alex Ovechkin, 698 goals. A pursuit to 700 starts the night. And then Elvis, I can't pronounce his last name. I can pronounce a lot of hockey last names. That one I cannot. For Columbus, also 5 shutouts in a row as well, too, for NHL. Besides that, not a whole lot of news going on. But
5
we'll definitely.
In a row is incredible.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Ovi, I think I've seen he's got 3 hat tricks in his last 5 games.
Yeah,
he got a hat trick in the third period alone the other day. I think it was. The dude's on fire. For me, it's pretty crazy with Ovechkin. Like, he is a player that can literally score at will. Like, a lot of times, players need help getting set up to be put in positions to score. Ovechkin is literally, get on my back, and we're going to get 5 goals today, and I'll probably have 4 of them. I mean, he just, like, pure scorer-wise, I have not seen a player that is better at that than Ovechkin is, in my opinion. Yeah. I love me some Ovi. He's my favorite hockey player ever. The dude is just the definition of a scorer.
Yeah.
And by no means do I think he's going to pass Gretzky in goals, but I've seen this a while back already. They laid up a thing about how Ovechkin could pass him and his averages and how he's got to do it over seasons. He's got a shot. He really does. Yeah. He hasn't slowed down much. The dude's on fire right now. And in hockey, I mean, look how long Yager went. Obviously, yeah, he wasn't great scoring 30 goals a year for a long time, but you can play a long time. People have done it. And if Ovi wants to, he might be able to do it. He really can.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Definitely, hopefully, next week, by the time we talk again, Ovechkin will have 700 goals, and we can talk about that and give that a little more recognition than we are right now.
He could go about a month without scoring, and it would be fine by me, though, because I'm going to see him on March 1st. So he can get 700 when I watch him.
There you go. Okay, yeah, we'll have to find out.
He'll be at No one will be in a month. He'll be going for like 800 against the Wild, though. So.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. 15 hat tricks in between that time. Yeah. But yeah, that's all the stuff I had to talk about at the end of the show. Nick, you have anything you wanted to bring up at all?
Like you said, I'm just gonna say it again. Timberwolves, they won the deadline. People, remember I said
you've heard
this,
it times.
Next year I'll be bashing them hardcore again, probably. But they finally did something for us.
Would expect nothing
Can't
less.
Believe it. It's like pigs are flying now.
Pigs are flying, man. Something. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't have anything else to bring up. So again, yeah, definitely give this a share, folks. If you like what you heard, let us know. Like it, share it, retweet it. If you didn't like something, that's fine. Let us know too. I'm sure we made mistakes along the road. We do almost every time. It's just probably what's going to happen. But no, yeah, and great show. So Twitter-wise, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow myself at Lucas_Dorton, capital L, capital D. If you want to follow Nick on Twitter, it is at Duckett or Doetkott, whichever's easiest for you there. Be on the lookout, too, on a potential Twitter page for the Dorton and Doetkott Debate podcast as well. Definitely going to try and get that up and working. Also, too, another cool thing, potentially have a logo coming for us as well, too. So definitely be on the lookout for that, as there's been some kind of cool things going on with the podcast right now. But that is all the stuff that I have to talk about. I am Lucas Dorton. As for myself and Nick Duckett, we are out.